Gifford, and that is the overall beginning of my message to you regarding changing society to where the kind of things that happened to me and probably to you or somebody that you know, if you're here, can stop happening. Call it assault. And what I'm talking about is we talk about childhood sexual abuse and sexual abuse. But anytime somebody physically touches you, much less rapes you, it's assault. And I, as a survivor of 7 years of childhood grooming and what I call rape is assault, I don't feel it's fair for you to say that I was abused as a child. Um, I'm Linda K. Gifford. I am the author of Self Talk, My Continuing Efforts to Survive Childhood Sexual Grooming and Assault. And I developed a program based on my own experience and 20 years of research and work and counseling and therapy and trauma-focused cognitive behavioral therapy and such. I don't want you to have to take 20 years to arrive at a place where you love yourself and you understand the effect that this has had on you. Many people who have cPTSD are being treated as if they have PTSD, and it's not the same, and it doesn't work. It presents the same very often, and we're going to talk about that later. But the overview I want to give you today is the SPADES method. It's just a recognition of the things that I do every day, and I have put it into SPADES, an acronym that's easy to remember, and I literally draw from it myself every single day, several times a day. And once you dive in and learn the way that repeated trauma in your childhood, whether it was sexual assault, not abuse, assault, or whether it was neglect or violence, physical violence other than sexual, whether it was food deprivation or a tragic loss of a parent, these things at a young age affect your actual brain development. So until recently, it's always been treated as a depressive disorder, an anxiety disorder. Even PTSD until recently was classified as an anxiety disorder. And now it's understood that PTSD as well as cPTSD create an actual physical response that is separate from your cognitive responses. So when you apply that to someone who has CP, and the C is complex, cPTSD, what that means, the complex means they were exposed repeatedly to a trauma in their childhood that actually we now know we can look at your brain and see the neural connectivity is different. This is why we dissociate so well, and that's part of the SPADES program. We're going to go deep into the P in SPADES, separating the past from the present. I should give you an overview. This is going to be 8 weeks. Today and tomorrow, I'm introducing the program, giving you an overview of why the language of society needs to change and what y'all are doing wrong, including me having to recognize the things that I say that perpetuate women as commodities and children as sexualized beings. We have so many paradoxes set up, and all of which we will talk about. Anybody seen the Pee Wee Herman movie, right? Where he's in the Alamo and he's waiting and waiting through the whole tour to ask a question, and they get like into the basement, and she's looking over a field of pretend maze, and she's like, there are over 2,000 uses for maze, all of which I will tell you about right now. And he's just like, where's the Alamo? Anyway, hilarious. But yeah, it's going to take 8 weeks. It's going to be 6 weeks of SPADES. And let's go into that now. S, the shame is not yours. Easy to say, easy to write down, hard to understand on a gut level. Now we're going to talk about why, and we're going to learn how to overcome shame. And that's number one on the list, because it's the first step in removing from the inside of yourself this thing that has become your whole being. It's who you think you are, to the point that many cPTSD sufferers don't even know they have it. The medical establishment still hasn't caught up with coding it differently. So most, as I was saying earlier, people with cPTSD are being given talk therapy, which is detrimental, generally speaking, except within the confines of specific exercises like EMD designed to reprogram your brain, because that is something we're going to need to do. But S, shame is not yours. Work on that. And then we go to P, and this is huge, and separating the past from the present will come up every single day. Every single letter in SPADES will come up every single day, because it's very hard to separate the past from the present. Jumping into the rabbit hole of, confusion, or crazy, as I call it, that's kind of rude and mean, even to myself, to call it that rabbit hole of crazy, but it's a rabbit hole of confusion where it feels better when you're triggered to just tangent off onto something else, whether it's partying or crafting, or just mindlessly jumping into a freak out. I mean, full freak out rabbit holes are the best and the worst, because as somebody suffering a triggering event and a PTSD or cPTSD event, it actually feels better to be lost in the crazy, because there you just feel. And it's not a good feeling, but it's one you're used to. It's one that you're used to. And then life becomes harder because the people around you think you're nuts. You've developed a pattern, perhaps, of controlling people around you without knowing it by your emotions. There's a lot of stuff to do, to unpack. That's why we're going to take a long time doing this. Separating the past from the present is the P in SPADES. Moving on for now. The A, ask for what you want. Don't just take what's given in life. That sounds like it should be easy, but it is so hard, and it is absolutely typical. Nearly 100% of cPTSD, I don't like the word sufferers. It's a condition that we have that we don't need to feel bad about. People with cPTSD, I didn't have a chance at normal brain development any more than you did, assuming that you have cPTSD. Because our brains are smart, they're good, they're forming at young ages, and they are going to redirect your mind to something you can handle. And it's amazing what the body and the mind especially can take. And when you know something doesn't make sense, all the sensations, all the memories, they're all there, but your brain chooses not to file them. Because if it did, you would understand what's going on, and then you would have to, I don't know, I tried to kill myself twice at the peak of it all, at 16 and 17. I don't want that to happen to you. Sorry. Coffee break. So, ask for what you want. Don't just take what's given. That's a lot harder than it sounds. And so we will work on that thing. We're going to work on that thing. People will tell you that you're selfish. And then they'll also tell you that you're selfless if you're doing everything for everybody else. But if you aren't making yourself happy, and I mean not just career, job, home, life, marrying who you want to, we're going to get all about that, all in arranged marriages and such. Very, very angering to me, and something that we and I actively fight against. I'm involved in a whole lot of things with my Sweet Survivor. I don't think I've even mentioned that yet. Sweet Survivor Resource Fund. and now the Sweet Survivor Heroes. We're going to be the Sweet Hero Rescue Teams, and we are signing now. So please message me if you will agree to essentially be in the neighborhood watch and educate yourself what to look for, because it is shocking. You can't really find a small town, much less a 10-block city radius, that doesn't have a house where women are being trafficked and girls and children are being trafficked against their will. It's that prevalent. It's not a conspiracy theory. You need to help us. And there is an organization founded by Ashton Kutcher and Milo, actually Demi Moore. And Ashton and Mila Denise are very active in Thorn. And what they do, they have evolved since their founding in 2012 into connecting with doing the cyber research. When they are onto somebody who might be a potential threat, they get in and do the cyber research and then coordinate with local, regional, federal, even international governments. They coordinate with the police, they coordinate with private agencies, all at the same time. And they have actually rescued over 6,000 victims of child sex trafficking. And let's throw some numbers out there while we're at it. There are an estimated, I believe it's 40.2 million. No, I think I've got that wrong. I'm going to say 20 million conservatively people trafficked for sex trafficking and manual labor exploitation every year. And 1.2 million of them, estimated by the ILO, are children. That's just sex trafficking, the 1.2 million children. That's what the number was. It's like 20 million sex trafficking and over 40 million if you include human labor, So it's got to stop. So SWEET stands for Survivors Working to End Exploitation and Trafficking. And while my experience is in grooming, I want to help the people who need help right now. So the way I found I could do that is I've been coaching. I've been working with people. I wrote a book called Self-Talk, My Continuing Efforts to Survive Childhood Sexual Grooming and Assault. I developed my SPADES program off of it. I founded Sweet Survivor Resource Fund, and now we are adding Sweet Hero Rescue Teams so we can coordinate with Thorn and other agencies to get people help now. So back to, I said S, P, and A, D. The D in spades is don't wait to feel okay to be okay. And by that, I mean, you're never going to feel like people who weren't sexually assaulted. But that's okay. It's not okay that it happened, but it is what it is. This is your life. Move on. But moving on is not forgetting and forgetting. Moving on, for me at least, to the point that I can't even work as a coach with people who refuse to do something to change the future. They have licensed PhD people for that. What I do is teach you what I've learned to cope every day. And also the biggest part of coping every day is going out there and doing and realizing that you're actually in a huge club that you don't want to be in. We just don't talk about it. So don't you think maybe it's time to talk about it? Because if we talk about it, we can change the language of society, and maybe we can make people see how they sexualize children. I have a TED Talk, TEDx talk, written all about this. And I'm going to present, it's called Call It Assault. And I'll let you know when I'm presenting that. I'm going to be presenting it in Kansas City, most likely, or Springfield, Illinois, but it looks like Kansas City, at least the first one. And I think it's very important that we don't demean our experience with the light word abuse. I personally feel forgiveness is overrated, and you don't have to forgive yourself because you never did anything wrong. Okay. And you don't have to forgive your assailant because rapists don't need forgiven. You know, you can forgive them within the confines of your religion and your spirit for your soul's sake, sure. But as far as letting them off the hook, not talking about it, letting them potentially harm another, no, that's not okay. But anyway, D, don't wait to feel okay to be okay. We'll talk about ways to get out, ways to overcome, and we're going to get into sex and intimacy in the D week because, full disclosure, I was married and divorced 3 times, and I did not even know until I broke through these mental barriers, until I realized I had cPTSD, until I learned the changes it made in my brain and took proactive, counteractive measures to change the way I think and to change my brain's function. Until I did that, I didn't know what I was missing. I married people based on what I truly meant was love, but I see now there was never physical attraction. I've always, cPTSD sufferers sexually, if that was your cause of your cPTSD, everyone I've talked to feels the need to please and perform and like me until it happened to me, and I'll never let them go. I have the best partner ever, and I'll never let them go because for the first time, he smelled right. And I'm going to start saying they for the sake of this is not men, this is not women. Anybody can be a victim of sexual assault, trafficking. Anybody can be a victim of sexual assault and grooming. So I prefer to say they. But you should have that sense about someone before you commit your life to them. It shouldn't be about feeding them and having their children and making sure that the house is running smoothly. All that's great. I love that part too. But if I didn't want the sensory experience, I would be back where I was, which was 14 years of being alone by choice. I didn't date. I didn't care. I was raising my children and I had no concept of sexual fulfillment on my end, you know, and this is something we're going to have to get into with the Don't Wait to Feel Okay to Be Okay, because what I have found, again, across the board, talking to lots of people, coaching people unofficially online, that it's just a universal thing that we are givers, but don't even know that receiving is a thing. So it's one thing to like bitch about not getting enough back. I'm not getting orgasms. It's all about them, not me. Well, for those of like us, we don't even know that's a thing. So to us, sex is a performance art. And I don't want that to be your case. And it took me so long to understand that. I mean, I didn't even know it was there, needed to be understood. And now that I do, pardon my language, God damn, you're missing out if you're not at that level. And so we're going to work hard to get you there. And in the D. E in spades, educate and advocate. We've got to educate and advocate for change. I mean, you don't have to. But if you want to be my friend and come to my barbecue, I like people who educate and advocate. I like people who take their experience and go change the world. And starting back to the S in spades, the first S in spades, shame. Shame stops people. And the shame comes from you, you public, you, everyone else, even some of you like me who are survivors. When we are taught and trained that virginity is a thing and that virginity is something that can be given or taken or stolen, then the natural progression is if any of those things happened against your will, you feel ruined. So people can tell you all day long you're not ruined, but they also tell you, shh, you'll ruin the family. No one will want you. That's the fear. That's the fear. And for those of us who were groomed, it's different than just a sexual assault rape, which is terrible enough. But if you're groomed as a child, you know this is wrong, but you also don't even know what's going on. And you also know that the person doing it is somebody that's, you think at least from your child's mind, respected, and somebody that you basically trust. And so it all becomes very, you dissociate because you can't tell. So if we don't educate and advocate, then people like me aren't going to tell. And I had a fantastic family. I want to set the record straight. My father was a minister who gave up the ministry because of hypocrisy in the church and went on to have degrees in psychology, theology, ancient history, and then later administration. He was wonderful. But where they went wrong is not knowing that this could happen literally in their own backyard. And that something like that could go on for years. And somebody like me, a straight A student, honor society, first seat flautist, I was involved in everything, all state choir, 2 years, cheerleader, tumbling team. I didn't tell. I dissociated. By then I was so used to dissociating. And the hardest part about educating and advocating is the blowback that you will get, probably, depending on who you are. My parents are dead. I probably wouldn't be doing this if they weren't, to tell you the truth. And that's wrong of me. It's wrong of me to admit that. But the rest of my family, essentially my own sister disowned me. Not essentially, she disowned me. She said, I never want to see you or speak to you again. Just within the last 2 months, when trying to discuss my book with her. She's like, what book? I'm like, the one I've been writing for 3 years, the one, yeah, just like, and then gonna sue you if I'm in the book. And I'm like, I already told you you're not in the book. This came up before, and then still just screaming at me, why can't you just get over it? Why can't you just shut the hell up? Everybody else gets over it. It's like, I think I'm more over it than most people that I know. And I have a joyous, wonderful life. And I've moved on to actual orgasmic, emotionally intelligent love with a actual human partner that consistently displays these qualities and brings out the best in me. I've gone on to learn and educate and advocate, and I want that for you. So that's the E, educate and advocate. It's the path forward. It's the way to save your children and your grandchildren. The S in spades, the last S in spades. Spirit. So don't get scared. Don't get scared. I say I'm either everything or nothing when it comes to religion. Everyone can have their own understanding of what the spiritual world is, what spirit is to you. But there are 2 aspects of spirit we're going to dive into deeply when we get to Spirit Week, which is the 6th week in the workshop, excluding the intro, which is today and tomorrow, and the outro. Spirit, within the confines of your religion, I'm not asking anybody to abandon their religion, but I am asking you to look within your religion and look for the things that are goodness and kindness and mercy and love. And those teachings, spread that and put on your freaking big girl or boy pants and boots and stomp all over the part that says women and others are to be commoditized or reduced in any way, marginalized, treated differently, have choices taken away. That's not okay. And yes, I'm in a fight with certain fundamentalists, and that includes Christian fundamentalists, because you'd be shocked at the number of child marriages there are in this country and at the lack of any laws to prevent it, as long as the parent agrees. This results in everything from people trafficking their own children, which is very common, shockingly common, to people marrying their children to, in polygamous relationships, to, oh my God, in some parts of the world, you can just trade your daughter, not just can, you do trade your daughter for cows. We'll talk all about that too. don't trade your daughter for a cow will definitely be the subject of one of the podcasts, because in addition to the CSA cPTSD workshops, I will be podcasting Those Nasty Women Talk, where I get a little more about the whole world picture for everybody. Back to spirit. The other side of spirit, besides fix your religion. That's what I'm trying to say. The other part of spirit is, however you do it, whatever you want to call it, change the word spirit for whatever works for you. But reality is manifested. And by that, I mean the choices you make affect your future. That's simple. So don't let manifestation scare you. Manifestation means choosing who's going to be in your life now, who's not. Where you're going to go today, where you're not. What color lipstick you're going to wear. I mean, that's the light level. But if I had not done my study and my research on myself, I've got this cord swinging, I could not have manifested the life I have now with my business. My business is Sweet Survivor. It's a sweet shopping group, and it's a bunch of little eco-friendly small collections of products that are made by women, family, and community artisans. And for me, that is my way of giving back. That is my way. And I started that all the way back in 2017 before I ever thought I'd be writing a book. I wrote a book on accident. I wrote the first 7 chapters in one sitting after a blackout a few years ago. And here we are. So thank you for letting this program exist. And please realize that manifesting is just the process of removing from your life. Manifest sounds scary, like, oh, you have to twitch your nose and create something and invent something. It's like, no. Manifesting is just take everything else out. This is my way of looking at it. Take out the stuff that doesn't fit. Take out the stuff that doesn't like. Get rid of the partner that's not interested in your orgasms or your body or your happiness or your joy or your mental state. Change your life in the little, you can't just do that all at once, I realize. But increment by increment, everything that you can change, that you can remove from your life that is not a good fit, all that is left then, all you have room for are things that do. So now you have manifested through, basically, it goes hand in hand with dissociation. And that's something I'm going to teach all along, but especially in the P, separate the past from the present, that dissociation can be used for good, not evil. So we're so freaking good at dissociation, we might as well use that stuff, right? I've learned how to walk away in the past, maybe too quickly and maybe too harshly, but to walk away so that I would not be victimized again. I dissociated and dissociated and dissociated until all that my canvas was more empty. And then all I would take was something that was the picture I wanted to see on my canvas. And that's how I got where I am. And if you want to get there too, I know you do, then just treat yourself well and stop kicking your own ass and don't be ashamed. You didn't do this to you. You don't need to forgive you. Back to the top. And please call it assault, because changing the language of society starts, like I said, in increments. And it's not fair for those of us who were raped or beaten, physically touched and violated in any way. It's not fair for our assailants to be called abusers. You know why? Because abusers get lower sentences. Because abusers do hardly any jail time for what they have done. I personally am for the death penalty for rapists. Absolutely. And if you haven't been raped, you do not know what it's like to be violated in that way and have your ability to feel, to learn to feel, just robbed from you. I'll close with something I think all cPTSD sufferers can understand. when you are violated as a child, sexually violated as a child, then when you do become sexually active, it's not you already never had the chance to, like I was saying earlier, to feel like you wanted to do it. And even though your first sexual experience probably shouldn't have happened and probably was a bad decision, at least if you made it yourself, you don't have the same level of you don't have a level of dissociation. At least you had feelings. Those of us who were inducted into a sexual life too young learned to shut down our feelings to the point we don't even know that they're a thing. And I'm here to tell you, they're a thing. You deserve to have them. So come back tomorrow. I'm going to talk more, and I really want to get into the language of society and more of an introduction into my call it assault. Basically, I'm going to kind of run my TED talk on you, only the unmemorized version. So you take care. I'll talk to you tomorrow at 2 o'clock. Bye. Got to end 2 streams here.